I'm Meaghan, and today we're going to talk about stress management. Um, a little bit about us. We were founded in 1918. It's a national charity that helps maintain and improve mental health for all Canadians. And CMHA helps people across the community find resources that they need to build resiliency and to recover or prevent mental illness in some cases. So we have offices in St. John, Moncton, Fredericton. We have fund development, that's provincial, community education coordinators. Basically, they're in rural areas, so we have coverage throughout all of New Brunswick. And we have Working Stronger Together in Charlotte County, so that helps people find meaningful employment in their region. So what is stress and what does it look like? So a lot of these words we can associate stress with. So, time management, no sleep, anxiety, that sort of thing. We typically feel stressed when a situation sort of surpasses our capacity to deal with it, right? So we're faced with a situation that needs to be responded to in one way or another, and we're sort of at a loss as to how to resolve it. And it gets easier with time. So think of the first time that you were faced with a specific problem, right? Didn't necessarily deal with it the same way that you deal with it today, the 30th time that you run into it. So on the bright side, it does get better. So it becomes negative stress though when we're unable to cope with it and we don't face it. And we don't take the time to resolve it, whatever it may be in the situation. Other things that can contribute to it. So we have chronic stressors. So being a carer or moving from one house to the other, any sort of a life change like that. Of course, it's not something that happens every day, right? So in the example that I gave, that you kind of get the hang of how to resolve one problem, you don't move every day, right? So of course there are going to be stressors that are going to happen that'll elevate that. It eventually balances out. A big one is pleasing everybody. So if you're in the habit of always saying yes, never having the ability to say no, that can lead to a lot of stress because you're not responding to what your needs are, right? So some stress in our personal lives, we have financial stress. So of course, at the moment, there's a lot of that kind of uncertainty going on. There's a lot of us that have been impacted, and there's less income coming in or whatever the case may be. And that's not necessarily something that's in your control, right? If we think of this pandemic, for example. And it's recognizing which ones that we have control over. So in this specific case, there are the supports available. We're all aware of them. So that's the way that you can respond to this particular stress, right? There are relationship stressors. So whether it's a romantic relationship or a friendship, if it's unhealthy in any way, if the communication isn't there, right? Communication's number one, you hear it all the time. And if it's something that's lacking, it can cause a lot of tension and stress, especially over time. So it's important to get in touch with people that make you feel good, people that have a positive impact on you. Any sort of change, right? So again, anything that deviates from our normal routine if we don't have the capacity to respond to it in a healthy way, especially quickly, right, it can elevate that stress. Anything that's unresolved can cause a lot of stress. Different demands. So it can be from anyone. It can be from children, from an employer, something like that, you know, someone that's making a demand from you, whether it's feasible to complete or not. Sometimes it can be stressful to sort of wrap your head around what to do. Control, right? It helps when you feel like you have control over the situation. So again, being able to problem solve, facing the stressor head on and finding whatever the solution is so that you can regain control over the situation. Aging parents, of course, is a stressor that most of us deal with, knock on wood, right? And that comes with specific concerns as well, right? And support. So do you have support in your life, healthy supports? And are you making sure that you take advantage of it, right? We also have stress in our work lives. So there's office politics, right? Dare I say drama. I think we've all worked with individuals who are kind of dedicated to the job itself and everything rolls smoothly. But then you have the ones that kind of like to see some chaos go on, so they stir. But it's up to you whether you have the choice, right? To get mixed up in it or not, to sort of side with those who work hard and are positive, as opposed to siding with those that, you know, might have a juicy secret to tell, you know? So long hours, overworked and underpaid. I think a lot of us feel like that sometimes. So it's making sure that maybe that needs to be reviewed, right? Are you able to reduce your hours, especially if you're not getting paid for the extra hours, that sort of thing. Unfairness and bullying. If someone is given special treatment over the others, right, that can lead to job dissatisfaction, and then that leads to stress as to, okay, so do I confront my boss about it? Do I change jobs? What would I do to change jobs, right? So that's where the stress comes from. But again, if you're able to problem solve, right? If you're able to say, you know what, no, I like my work. I like my work. I don't like the way that things are being handled right now. So I'm going to face it. I'm going to talk to my manager and let them know what I'm thinking, right? Have that communication piece. And that helps you regain control. It doesn't mean that the manager, you know, in the example that I'm giving, it doesn't mean that they're going to respond positively to what you're saying. You can't control how they're going to respond. But once you have the response, then you have another decision to make, right? Am I satisfied with their response? Am I okay now? Or do I need to make a change, right? So as situations come up, we have new choices to make, right? New control that can be had over a situation. Keep that in mind. Lack of acknowledgements or rewards. So of course, if you have an employer that, you know, never recognizes you for the hard work that you do, very discouraging to be in that sort of an environment, right? So again, the same stressors come up. Little or no control over workplace activities. So I know that some of us, I don't know, if I choose something silly like Halloween, right? I like that. I like getting dressed up and just kind of having fun. But there's a lot of people that don't, right? So if that's something that's sort of expected from someone while they're at work, is that going to stress them out, right? So lack of job security, of course, we have a lot of that around here, you know, a lot of people in my life anyway, they're hired through contracts, right? So for a 3 or 6 month gig, and then after that, it's sort of, okay, did you do well? Are we going to extend? And that sort of thing, right? So there's a lot of uncertainty. Again, that's where stress can come in. When there's uncertainty, when there's a lack of control over what is going on around you. Mm-hmm. That one was, it looks like it was duplicated, sorry. So we'll just move on to the other one. Stress after long term. So what do you think might happen if we ignore what stress is doing to us? And we have a couple statistics there. So 19% of absenteeism, right? So if we think of the workplace, 20% of absenteeism is due to stress, not necessarily being sick, right? That causes a strain for the employer, for the company itself, also for the colleagues, right? The colleagues are now facing a different stress. It's all interrelated and everything, one thing affects the other, right? 40% of turnover. So that means that, you know, people that quit go find other work. It's a very high number. 60% of workplace accidents, right? So you may be cutting corners because you want to get things done quickly because you're under a lot of pressure. And 30% of short and long-term disability. Some absences from work, you know, short and long-term disabilities are due to physical injuries. A lot are due to stress and feelings of depression and anxiety that can absolutely happen if we let stress get out of hand. Not to say that stress can't affect us physically either. Absolutely it can. When you feel stressed, do you not feel all tight and, you know what I mean? Like, of course it's going to affect your muscles, your blood pressure, your breathing, everything, right? So some suggestions for workplace stress reduction, and I think that these apply really to any part of life. Good communication. So again, are you able to express yourself clearly to your manager, to your spouse, to anyone? You know, make sure that your needs are out there. And again, you can't control what others are going to do. You can't control whether they're going to meet your needs or not. Then you're faced with a different decision. If your needs are not met, you have control over something new now. Take care of yourself, right? So you hear it all the time. You can't pour from an empty cup. So make sure that you're taking care of yourself so that you can, you know, live life to the best of your ability, whatever that looks like for you. Trust and acceptance. So sometimes you do have to trust others, you know, to kind of hold up their end of the bargain and accept if they don't. Again, that's the choice and that's the control that you can take over a new situation. So again, going along with communication, listen and understand. Communicating is not only about putting your needs on the line, it's understanding someone else's point of view, right? And, you know, making sure that they're heard, and they can't control what you're going to say. But again, be clear with them and take it from there, however the conversation shapes out, right? Listen to really understand instead of listening to respond, right? So having that response already ready after their first sentence, but they've said 10, and you're kind of only paying attention to the other 9, right? It's not really great communication. Get organized. Absolutely, that alleviates stress, right? If you know what's coming, I compare it to kids, right? They want to know what's going to happen for the rest of the day. Mom, what are we going to do? Dad, what are we going to do? What are we going to eat? What are we going to, you know what I mean? Because that provides them with comfort. And it's the same for us. It's the same for adults. And we sometimes kind of take it for granted that we can just kind of go with the flow. But it helps to be organized. It helps to alleviate the stress. Take responsibility over what you can, right? And let go of what is not your responsibility. There's a difference between the two, and identifying the two and responding appropriately helps alleviate that stress. Think positively. So even when you're faced with a stressful situation, think about it in a positive way. So what is this situation really teaching me? Right? And I'm trying to think of an example of workplace stress. So one thing that I can use as an example is I used to work in a contact center, and we had, I'm sure most of you, if not all of you, know at least one person that works in a contact center, and the expectations as far as, you know, sales and that sort of thing are pretty rigid. And at the time it was really stressful, right? It's what happens if I don't get the numbers, and it's, you know what I mean? Like, you don't want to get reprimanded. But the positive thing is that I'm able to express myself, and I'm able to speak to people, in front of people, and I don't have the same anxieties that others would. After having spoken with tens of thousands of individuals over the few years, you know, that I worked in that field, I'm a much better communicator than I was. I know what questions to ask, and I know how to respond in such a way that it's, you know, the information that I'm saying is well received, and that sort of thing, right? So that's the positive that came out of that. And sometimes it's not too comforting in the moment, right? It's like, the positive thought is not alleviating my stress at all, but it's all about the marathon and not the sprint, right? If you keep those positive thoughts, it'll level off eventually. So what do you think you can do about your stress levels? So again, identify the problem. Whatever the problem is, sometimes we feel stressed and we're like, oh, I don't know why. I don't know why. If you don't know why, take the time to find out. If you don't find out, you're never going to be able to regain that control, because you don't know, you know, what's feeling out of control for you, right? Take the time to identify the problem, solve the problem as it comes up, right? So instead of worrying, oh, you know, I wonder what's going to happen with this, or I wonder what she's going to say when I mention this, or, you know, solve it. Take the time, take action, do it right away. And then handle whatever comes your way as it comes up to alleviate that stress, right? Talk about your problems. Find that, you know, the people in your life that you can talk to, and you know that they're just not going to judge you, whether they give you advice or not, really. At the end of the day, like, we usually know what we need to do to make a situation better. So it's not always about getting advice, but it's just about kind of getting it off your chest, right? Maybe the individuals in your household, or, you know, their emotional personality is too similar to yours, right? So when you get into any kind of a heated discussion, it just doesn't, it clashes, right? So talk to that person that you know you can talk to at least get it off your chest, you know, and that might help you identify the problem too, right? Just having that dialogue, figuring it out as you go on. Simplify your life, right? So do you have things that you're taking on, responsibilities that don't belong to you, that you're kind of making your problem, right? See if there's ways that you can simplify that. And also material items. Do you have, I don't know, 5 coffee mugs at home? Do you need 5 coffee mugs at home? Right? When our environments are chaotic, physical environments, that can cause a lot of stress too. I was fortunate enough to have time to do some spring cleaning over the long weekend, and it feels so great. You all know it. You've all done spring cleaning before. You know that great feeling, you know, when you walk into the room the next time and you're like, oh yeah, that's right, we cleaned. And it feels so great, right? So take the time to simplify if that's what, you know, is needed in your home. Learn helpful thinking strategies. So, you know, when you're having thoughts, are you thinking negatively, right? Like, kind of to put it into that perspective. That's not a helpful thinking strategy, to think of what catastrophes could happen, right? So can you shift it? Can you turn it into a positive, or at least a learning experience? Not every experience has to be negative or positive. It can be neutral, right? It all depends on how you respond to it. Learn about stress management. So doing little things like this, definitely helpful. Even if you know, some of the stuff I'm talking about, absolutely, it's common knowledge. It's just nice to hear it sometimes, right? And if maybe hear a different take on it, and you know, you might take away 2-3 things that you think, oh yeah, you know what, I can really implement that in my life after listening to this webinar. Perfect. Work on those 2-3 things. Once that's kind of mastered, go educate yourself again. Go learn some more things that you can implement in your life. Things that are feasible for you, things that are doable, realistic for you, whatever that looks like. Start on the inside, right? So again, it's about really recognizing how we feel about different situations. Going back to the example that I gave, you know, I don't know why I'm stressed out. There's a problem. If you don't know why you're stressed out, my assistant is crying to come in. I don't know if he'll come in or not. He might make, oh, yeah, there he is. Sorry about that. So yeah, I was saying there's an issue. If you don't know, you know, what's going on emotionally with you, take the time to really listen to yourself, find out what it is that's bothering you. And if you can't, sometimes you just need professional help. And we do, just to let you know, we actually, through CMHA, we've partnered with a company, counseling company called Brelove Counseling, and they actually can offer a session for free and sort of give you direction on where to go from there if you need more than that one. All right. Get active, right? We all know that exercise is good for us, scientifically proven to make us feel better. And we sort of make any excuse we can under the sun, right, to not go out and exercise. See what you can implement in your life. See what you can implement that's doable. Don't start big and, you know, get discouraged when you fail. You're setting yourself up to fail. Start small, even if it's, I don't know, walking to the store instead of driving to the store, maybe, depending on where you live. Whatever it is, just think of something that's doable for you. 5-10 minutes, start with that and go from there. and do something you enjoy. What is it that you enjoy that's a healthy activity to do, right? Do you enjoy reading? Do you enjoy knitting, cooking, running, anything? There's a lot of activities that are very healthy for us, and we kind of put them off because we're stressed, right? Oh, you know, I'm too stressed to go run. Do you not think it's going to help you? Go do what you enjoy. Go do it, and you'll feel a lot better. And again, it's not about feeling better immediately. You're not, I don't know, let's say you have a perfect day, right? You've rested, you've eaten well, drank all your water. You're like, oh, I'm still stressed out. Okay, give it time, right? Over weeks, over months of having healthy practices, that's when you're really going to see the big difference. And some stress management techniques just to wrap up. So sleep, of course, that's something that we tend to neglect, right? Especially when we're stressed out, have a hard time sleeping. What is it that you can do that's in your control that can help you get the rest that you need? Is it a nap? Some cases that could be it. Is it going to bed every night at the same time? Is it getting up at the same time, right? Different routines that might be helpful to you. So figure out what that is. Eat well, right? I know we all love our fried foods and this and that and our comfort foods, you know, but making a meal at home is just as good. You know, we say it all the time when we take the time to barbecue or whatever, the burgers that we make are even better than what you would get at a fast food joint, but you still go there, right? It's just reminding yourself, no, you know what, like having that meal at home is just going to be just as good. And it's going to be, it's a good because it's like an activity between you and whoever it is that you live with. Even if you live alone, cooking is a great activity. That is a healthy activity that you can take part in. It's therapeutic, right? You can be mindful of what it is that you're doing, washing the veggies, chopping the veggies, whatever the case may be. There's a lot of things that you can be mindful of, right? The smells and the touches and the sights and the sounds and everything. Relax, take the time to relax, whatever that looks like for you. If it's your favorite activity, you know, reading, that's sort of relaxing. Is it breathing exercises? Is it meditation? Is it yoga? Whatever that looks like. Enjoyable activities. So again, we talked a little bit about that. And turn off the phone from time to time. So we're all guilty of it using, and I mean, it says phone, but any sort of electronic device. It can even be TV for those who don't really use internet. If you're too connected to any sort of an electronic device, you're kind of missing what's going on around you. And they're starting to kind of prove it there scientifically that there are lights, you know, in your phone screen, for example, that sort of make it even harder for you to sleep. But what is it that we do when we have a hard time sleeping, right? We'll be there in bed and we'll scroll Facebook for a little while. We're sabotaging our own success, right? By doing things like that. We know that it's no good. Have that courage, have that strength to make the change and see the positive repercussions that it can have. So let's see, I want to see if we have any questions so far. We don't. You guys are quiet. Nothing in the messages either. Is there anything at all that you guys want to comment on, or any questions that you have? Anything at all that you'd like to mention or you'd like to know that maybe I didn't mention? I'll give you a few seconds. Okay, so we have a question that came in to me. How to deal with the change of retirement. That's a big one. And that's a topic that's a little close to me now because my mom gets to retire this year. She's a nurse, and I'm so happy for her that she's going to get to retire in the fall. That definitely brings on a different lifestyle, doesn't it? You're busy in different ways. Or I guess you should make yourself busy in different ways, right? Find those activities that you enjoy, things that you maybe didn't do before because you didn't have the time to do it. And again, just keep in mind everything that we talked about problem solving, right? So whatever it is that you think is stressing you out, right? That's whatever situation is not sitting well with you. What is it that you can do to make that specific situation better? What control do I have over this situation? Take it from there. It's going to be every day, right? Especially in the beginning. If this is not something that you're used to practicing. And I mean, for you, having retirement is completely new. So it's going to be completely new challenges and concerns and that sort of thing. Deal with each one individually, and it'll come. Oh, I got a compliment. You did a great job. Thank you, Amanda. That's sweet of you. How to deal with a boss that is also stressed when you are trying to talk to them about things that are stressing you out. Absolutely, that happens a lot, right? And that's, the example that I was giving. You're in a situation at work where you either feel like you're being treated unfairly or whatever, right? Something's not sitting well with you, and you want to address it, but you feel like your whoever it is that you need to bring it up to is not going to be receptive. Again, you can't control what they're going to do, what they're going to say, how they're going to react. The only thing that you can do is control how you face it, right? There's a lot of advice that you can find, online or even on our site about being assertive. And I think that would be a good place to start, over and above the usual, remaining calm and using facts instead of accusatory statements and that sort of thing, right? There could be some things that you can find specifically about assertiveness if you feel like they're not going to listen and they're not going to understand what it is that you need. So that might be helpful for you. Is there another word we could use for exercise? The word exercise for some people is a negative word. Be active, maybe. Free-spirited. It's funny. Retiring can be a stressor and a big adaptation. Oh, it says a little casual job can help. Oh, thank you. I hope my mom enjoys it too. And she's actually talking about work. She's already talking about maybe working part-time. And so we'll see what that looks like for her. But I think that's the goal for everyone, right? When you retire, you want to make sure that you're still busy and there's still purpose in your day. And it's there. The purpose is there. You just got to find it, whatever's important to you, right? What advice would you give on gaining control on this extraordinary situation? Yay, Halloween. I think that's why a lot of us are so stressed out, because this is unprecedented, right? And it's not something that we can control. We're given direction on what to do, right? And it's not necessarily our decision or what we would have decided had we been given the choice. But it's good. It's good that they're giving us the direction because we know what to do. And that is where you find the control, right? You can control. whether you throw parties or not. You can control whether you wash your hands. You can control, right? There's a lot of things that you can still control in your day, even if it's not necessarily something that you would have planned out for yourself. Take comfort in the things that you can control. Good question. I can't exercise. I hate it so much, but at least I get some fresh air outside. That's a good place to start. Fresh air is wonderful for us, isn't it? We always, I mean, especially today, it was so gorgeous. Even if you only spend a minute outside, it's just like, oh, it feels so great. And really, like, exercising doesn't have to be extremely physically strenuous. I think that sometimes that's what we think of when we say exercise. It can be a leisurely walk. Even just a leisurely walk can make you feel, again, physiologically, it can make you feel good. So it's good. I'm glad that you're getting the fresh air for sure. Sorry, I'm just getting situated in the comments again. The stress and tension that is riding along with the pandemic. Are there suggestions on how to handle this in work and at home? Sometimes your partner may just drive you nuts, but you still need to work. Yeah, absolutely. So this is something completely new to most of us, right? Like for myself, I'm thankful to be working, but I'm working at home and it's never something I've done before. And as you saw, you know, my cat came in and kind of made a little show for you guys there a few minutes ago. What can you do? Just let the cat do what he wants to do. And I know a spouse is different than a cat. So goes back to the communication piece, right? If there's friction, whatever situation it may be, confront it. If it's with your children, if it's with your spouse, whoever it is that's in the house at the same time as you, have that frank discussion. And having a discussion, it's very important to stay in control of your emotions. You know, if you picture, I don't know, I was going to picture myself kind of delivering this information in a very aggressive way, let's say. Are you guys really going to be receptive or open to what I have to say? Are you going to retain much other than, wow, she had an attitude, right? So what is it that you can convey in that calm way to get to be on the same page? When you retire, find your passion and do it. Yeah, very good. I like that comment. Absolutely. And think of what your passion is before you retire. Look forward to retirement. You should. You've worked so hard to get there. Where do we find the information on being assertive? Ida, what I'm going to do is I'll do a quick search for you and see what I can find. I'm going to send you my email. I'm just going to type my email over in the chat section. So just send me a quick note. Say, hey, this is Ida from the presentation, and I'll see what I can find for you. Okay? There. So Meaghan Brown at CMHA.nb.ca. It's hard to get away from the negativity on the news these days with all the COVID details. I'm a news junkie, so it's hard to see anything positive in our world these days. That's absolutely true, especially when you think of social media. And I know that social media isn't news, but there are a lot of people that sort of rely on it to kind of keep up to date with what's going on. That's an unhealthy practice, especially in a situation like this. Make sure to you know, stay informed with important information that's given to us from, you know, public health and that sort of thing. Absolutely, stay informed. Don't get caught up in the drama, right? there's a very different way between the way that our politicians, right? I'm thinking of Justin Trudeau, how it is that he presents us with the information and how other politicians express the concerns to their nation, right? So I actually find a lot of comfort in what we're given for information because it's very factual. It's not, again, it's being conveyed to us in a calm and factual way. It's not about chaos, and it's not about the drama, right? So yeah, the news, yeah, absolutely, it's stressful. Make sure to keep track of the right kind of news is my advice. I'm just trying to get situated again. Caregivers on how to minimize stress in elderly, yeah. Yeah. So nursing facilities and yeah, long-term care facilities, that sort of thing. Absolutely. That would be a very stressful situation. I can't even imagine. I mentioned that my mom's a nurse, so she's a frontline worker, but in a different way. And I can imagine that there are a lot of responsibilities that are given to these individuals that you might not have had before, right? So those extra precautions that the rest of us are expected, to sort of do on a daily basis, you're trying to accomplish that in a small environment, right? In an environment where you're used to being sort of on top of each other, and that's a good thing, right? In terms of the social life and taking care of everyone. I think the one thing you can do is remember how appreciated you are. If everyone appreciates you, even if they don't take the time to say it. On a good day, like let's say 6 months ago, a year ago, I would be thankful for the work that you do. More so today. I know that it's very difficult. Again, it's focusing on the things that you can control, right? So what instructions do I have from my employer? What is it that I can do with those instructions? And really enjoy your time at home. Enjoy the time that you do spend at home away from the job, whatever job you may have, but specifically in this case, a different kind of home or facility. And take the time to enjoy everything that we talked about, right? Make sure to have those healthy hobbies. Make sure to have the healthy supports in your life, positive people that you can talk to. Keep joining things like this. We actually have a support group, if you're not aware yet, on our Facebook page, we've created a specific Facebook page, I should say, for frontline workers through CMHA. Again, you can definitely email me and I'll send you the link for that. There are webinars specifically for people in that situation. So people who are deemed frontline or essential or that sort of thing. Of course, it comes with specific stressors, and who better to answer that than a support group that's specifically for you, right? You can even find colleagues there, right? That you don't necessarily know, but that work in another facility, let's say. They might have advice for you too. Who better to answer than someone who's in the situation themselves? So send me an email, please, and I'll respond to that for sure. I like this one. To end on a positive note, I'll think of all the silver linings that may come out of the pandemic. Quite possibly we'll be more resilient and kinder to one another. I think that that's very true. Yeah, I think that that's very true. That's a good spin to put on it. Thank you, Sheena. You can always watch the Canadian news instead of, CNN, American stations. I like that suggestion. I think one of the things about media right now, keep informed, but don't look at them all. Yeah. One or two a day, and only factual ones, not from Facebook. Absolutely. I agree with you there. Use the reputable sources, right? Public health, whatever that may look like. We're living in a stressful time that has so many unknowns to us. I find still having a little routine to our day helps out. Yeah, great. I'm glad to hear that. I spoke with someone last week and they told me that she and her spouse still prepared lunches on Sundays, right? So even though they may be working at home, the lunches are still made on Sundays the way they always were, right? So when they have their lunch break, it's kind of like, you know, giving them that routine that they're accustomed to. I really enjoy working from home with family around. Any advice on how to stop enjoying their fridge too much? Yeah, being home all the time, there's a lot more food around. Like, same. I'm really having a hard time with the whole eating thing. But again, it's the routines, right? And it's fine. It's finding whatever works for you, right? So, did you buy chips today? Are you going to eat them? Yeah, probably. So maybe the solution is buying less, or, you know, allowing yourself a certain portion, you know, play with it, whatever the case may be. And you can, you know, on a more educational level, absolutely hop online and talk to a dietitian, whatever, just get some tips and tricks on what foods you can have that are comforting, right? That aren't, you know, just a dry cracker, let's say, but that's not too unhealthy, right? So kind of get that information. Mm-hmm. The free counseling session is something that you can email our Moncton office about. So I'm going to type in their email right now. Or actually, no, just email me. Email me and I'll forward it to them. And that way they can get back to you and set that up. Absolutely. How to manage a few stressors at once. COVID-related, recent separation, responsibilities with young adults, with special needs graduating and unsure what the future holds for part-time work, or unable to be on their own, their care. Yeah, some resources are in place. Absolutely. That's a lot. That would be a lot to have on someone's plate. And we all, you know, in one way or another, we all have different things that are on our plates. It's identifying whatever it is that's stressing you with every single situation and tackling every situation as an individual, right? So what is it that's important to me, to my values? And what is it that I can do to control this situation? A couple things that you mentioned, there's not much control over it. Like if I use COVID as an example, the virus, you know, the control that I spoke to earlier is something that it's information that we're receiving. So that's how we can control our actions, but it's not something that you thought of yourself, right? And you might run into that with the individual in your life with special needs, right? Some of the choices that you might have to make are not maybe the ones that you would have chosen if you had the choice, but find out what the choices are and then go from there. Find which one is best for you. It's tough. That's a lot. I find it hard to find resources for frontline staff who work nonprofit and don't have coverage, but aren't comfortable going to community partner agencies. Vicarious trauma is huge for frontline workers, and that builds stress and unhealthy stress responses. Absolutely. Vicarious trauma, for those who might not be aware of the term, is when something traumatic happens to others, you're exposed to it in some way, whether through storytelling or through, let's say, bandaging a wound, right? If you're someone that works in the medical sector, you can develop trauma like that. And that's a big concern for individuals that work frontline. So, you know, if you think of someone like us, for example, we're a free service. So, and you know, you can register as an anonymous user. So take advantage of things like this, even though you don't necessarily take the time to share your story, right? So for that individual in your life, or individuals that may have a hard time to reach out, remind them that there are a lot of services that are anonymous. And every service that you do enter into, confidentiality comes into play. Anyone that's in any sort of therapeutic role, counseling role, that sort of a thing, the first time you meet with them, you sign confidentiality agreements. They let you know, I'm pointing to myself as if I were a psychologist or something. So when that individual agrees to meet with you and help you with your life, they're agreeing to keep the things you say private. The only things that they would have to divulge is if they're concerned that you will hurt yourself or others, right? Like there's situations like that, and they spell it out, black and white, very first session, these are the situations where I'd have to breach confidentiality and I'd have to talk to someone else. So I know that it's intimidating, but I would reassure the individuals in your life that are hesitant to seek help for that reason. I would reassure them that it really is a great resource, either to sign up for webinars like this or more formal counseling or whatever the case may be. And if they really can't get over that fear, what about self-education, right? What about just, right, Googling anything at all? There's YouTube videos for anything now. Find some that help educate on whatever it is they're struggling with. Lots of books too. I have a question, any suggested reading? I will say that a book that I really enjoyed was The Artist's Way. Oh, and I forget the author's name now. If you email me, I'll send it to you, but otherwise, if you Google it, The Artist's Way. And it's really like a self-help book to help you get in touch with what it is that's important to you and how to go about implementing that in your day, right? So it speaks a lot to creativity, because I think that there's a creative side of us that sort of goes away as the years go on, right? We're much more adventurous and less self-conscious when we're young, right? So it kind of goes away with time. But this kind of helps you connect with what your core and deep values are deep inside of you, going back to when you were a kid. So I really enjoyed that book. I hope you do too, if you take the time to read. Don't you think they should have courses about this during their training, especially if going into an essential service? I'm not sure I understand your question. I think that maybe I don't understand. I'm so sorry. Can you type it again? Oh, okay. I see what you mean, Michael. Sorry. You're asking if these workers are provided with this. Some employers absolutely are very proactive to whoever. I don't only mean frontline workers. I know that it's especially important for them. but some employers are very proactive, and they ask, for example, people like me, anyone that works with my organization, to talk to their staff, right? And to have this sort of a presentation, for example, or many other topics, and kind of have that discussion with them so that they can have healthy and best practices underway. If you're working for an employer that doesn't take the time to do that, that's where I would maybe speak up and make that suggestion to the employer. See what it is that they say. Again, can't control what they're going to do. They might say no, might have to respect that. In that case, do your own self-educating. Keep joining things like this. Oh, my assistant's back. You know, keep educating yourself whatever way you can in your personal time, if your work is not going to support that, right? Oh, thank you. Julia Cameron is the author of Artist's Way. Thank you very much. How about in training? Michael, again, that has to do with specific employers. Some do, absolutely, some do. You know, I'm trying to think of a specific profession. For example, I took a child and youth care course, and I learned a lot, like a lady said earlier, vicarious trauma, and I knew what it meant immediately, even though I'm not a frontline worker. So education, right? Any sort of a course, whether it's college or university, you're going to learn a lot about that going into a profession where you deal with vulnerable populations. So from an education standpoint, it's there. And if you have a great employer, they're going to take the time to teach you about those things too, right? Specific to whatever organization you work for, whatever population you're helping, right? So, and again, if it's not happening, maybe it's time to bring it up to the employer, see what it is that they can do. Maybe a great time to adopt a pet might help with the exercise. You'll be saving a life and you never know, they may be saving yours. Yeah, absolutely. I hear that all the time. You know, people that say that their pet kind of adopted them, it sort of fills a piece that you didn't know was missing, right? It makes you whole in a way that you didn't know you were lacking. So yeah, it's kind of sweet to have pets. It's a responsibility though, so don't do anything without really thinking it over, but absolutely a dog could be helpful to get that fresh air. You know, playing with, I think of a dog, right? Because they're a lot more active than cats. My cats usually just sleep on me. So depends what you get, but yeah, they can provide a lot of happiness too. Oh, cool. I see the comment. I keep a bowl of fruit at my workstation. There you go. That's a really good piece of advice. Get the healthier food right in front of your face, right? And easily accessible instead of having to walk over and get those chips. Thank you. Yes, Diana Gregory can be emailed directly. Awesome. Thank you. I'm seeing that my colleague put the Frontline Essential Workers, the Facebook group, she put it in the chat. So if you want to click on that, that's your group for the Frontline and Essential Workers. Thank you, Angela. Great. Well, I think that we'll end it there. We went a couple minutes over our expected hour, so I appreciate you guys staying with me till the end. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I think we had a great discussion. I learned a couple things. So I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day and take care.